This program is coming to you tonight from a room in a building named after a billionaire. And that building is located in the middle of a campus of buildings named after that same billionaire. Rockefeller Center was named after John D. Rockefeller, America's first billionaire, who lived 4 blocks north from where I'm sitting right now. Billionaires have always loved New York. But now that Donald Trump is facing more than $500 million in civil judgments against him in New York courts, the Fox propaganda channel, which is located in Manhattan, a block away from Rockefeller Center, wants you to think that New York is a bad place to do business because it has laws.
New York was already a loser state. Like California is a loser state. There are many loser states because of policy, high taxes, uncompetitive regulation. It was already on the top of the list of being a loser state. I would never invest in New York now.
Well, New York doesn't exactly need his money because, among other things, New York has more billionaires than it knows what to do with. And most of the rest of those billionaires are in California, that other loser state, the richest state in the union, which has an economy that would rank as the 5th largest economy in the world if California were a country. The states that guy calls loser states, California and New York, are always competing for the most expensive home sale in the country. The current winner is New York, where a billionaire bought an apartment 5 blocks north of John D. Rockefeller's old apartment for $238 million. $238 million to have a box in the sky with bathrooms and a kitchen. That's how much billionaires love New York, especially New York City, especially Manhattan, whose courts have visited more than $500 million in judgments against Donald Trump just this year. No billionaire in Manhattan is going to leave because of what happened to Donald Trump in court. Billionaire Mike Bloomberg is staying. You can't find a prouder New Yorker than Mike Bloomberg, who served 3 terms as the city's mayor, the only billionaire mayor in American history. In fact, New Yorker Mike Bloomberg was the richest elected official in American history, and nothing can get him to leave New York City. My first guest tonight, the governor of New York, was an aide to New York's senior Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan when Senator Moynihan got fed up with the kind of talk you just heard from that guy on Fox about New York. And Senator Moynihan started publishing a report every year to show how much more money the state of New York contributed to the federal government than it got back from the federal government. And in that report, New York really was a loser state, which is to say the state of New York lost money because of its membership in the United States of America. And the state of California lost money because of its membership in the United States of America. And the states that guy called winner states later in that interview all really were winner states because they won money from the United States Treasury, meaning they all collected more money from the federal government than they ever paid in. The state that guy went on to praise, the states that he really praised, were North Dakota and West Virginia. 2 of the least desirable states to live in, according to their population numbers. In a country where we are all free to choose where we live, North Dakota ranks 48th in population. West Virginia ranks 40th. No one on Fox wants to live in North Dakota, and no one on Fox wants to live in West Virginia. I've been to both of those beautiful states more than once, and they have entranced me by their beauty and the charm of their people, but I, for one, couldn't make a living in either one of them. In fact, most people you see on Fox live in New York, where Fox has always been headquartered and will always be headquartered. The state of New York has been supporting the federal government from the beginning, first by the collection of tariffs in the largest port in the country, where when tariffs were the largest source of the federal government's revenue at first. And then throughout the 20th century and 21st century, through the income tax, when New York had more top income taxpayers than any other state in the Union. Interstate highways in Alabama were not paid for by the people of Alabama. New York City subways were not paid for by the people of Alabama or the taxpayers of North Dakota or the taxpayers of West Virginia. New York City is economically the most dynamic city in human history. And if the laws of New York enforced against Donald Trump cause him financial pain, that won't stop any billionaire or any business from thriving in New York as they always have and always will. Donald Trump wants to make New York a loser state in another way. Donald Trump and the Republican Party want the women of the state of New York to lose the rights that they have to control their own bodies and their own health, and that the rights that they've had for more than 50 years. Now that the judges Donald Trump appointed to the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, Donald Trump wants to overturn the law of New York State and the law of California and the law of Massachusetts and the law of 30 other states that guarantee women the same protections that they have had under Roe versus Wade. Here's Donald Trump with Tim Russert on Meet the Press in 1999.
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice. I hate the concept of abortion. I hate it. I hate everything it stands for. I cringe when I listen to people debating the subject. But I just believe in choice.
16 years later, Donald Trump said this.
I've evolved on many issues over the years, and you know who else has is Ronald Reagan evolved on many issues. What happened is friends of mine years ago were going to have a child, and it was going to be aborted, and it wasn't aborted, and that child today is a total superstar, a great, great child. And I saw that, and I saw other instances, and I am very, very proud to say that I am pro-life.
And then came the Chris Matthews moment.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
And then Donald Trump said this.
Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
Well, he was right about overturning Roe versus Wade. The New York Times is reporting that Donald Trump is now privately discussing a federal abortion ban that he would sign into law as president. And so, as of tonight, voters have 259 days to understand the stakes. In the presidential election on this issue, Donald Trump will sign a national abortion ban into law if he is elected president and Republicans control the Congress. And Joe Biden will veto a national abortion ban if he is reelected and if Republicans control the Congress.
Make no mistake about it. If Congress passes a national ban, I will veto it.
Last week, in a special congressional election on Long Island, abortion rights was the clearest issue separating the winner from the loser.
Thinking about supporting Republican Mazi Pilip, listen to what she just said on abortion.
I have a faith on the Supreme Court and make the right decision.
You've heard it. Mazi thinks overturning Roe v. Wade was the right decision. New Yorkers can't trust Mazi to protect abortion rights.
Vote for Tom Suozzi.
Tom Suozzi became the Democratic nominee in that special election after a meeting with New York's Governor Kathy Hochul, who then decided to endorse him and went on to raise $200,000 for the Suozzi campaign. Tom Suozzi will be sworn in as the newest member of the House of Representatives next week, and the Democrats will have one more vote in the House of Representatives. Joining us now is the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Governor.
Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you for your rousing defense of our beloved state of New York. New York will never be a loser state, so we appreciate your comments at the outset.
I mean, when you know the subject, as you obviously do, it is the easiest case you can possibly make. I mean, this idea that, Donald Trump they enforced the law against Donald Trump, so now billionaires and businesses will flee New York. It's just the easiest possible thing you could respond to.
I would say corrupt business people like Donald Trump may not find a nice welcome here in the state of New York, and that's great with me. We have a great, thriving economy here. Literally a few hours ago this afternoon, I was with the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, part of the Biden administration, to announce the Biden administration's investment to help an $11 billion new fab being built in upstate New York to cement our leadership in the semiconductor industry. They're here in New York. They're not somewhere else. Same thing with Micron. Micron, with 50,000 jobs, $100 billion investment, is coming to New York. So no matter what is said on stations that no one pays attention to, this is the place that businesses want to be. And Donald Trump, I'm sorry, you didn't follow the laws, and there are consequences to breaking the laws in the state of New York.
Let's go to what Donald Trump has been saying about abortion, and mostly not saying. He's ducking the issue as much as he possibly can. New York Times is reporting what he's really thinking, which is he will sign some kind of federal abortion ban that will be negotiated with Republicans in Congress, exactly what the details of it are. But what that absolutely means is taking rights away from women in the state of New York, women in California, women in Massachusetts, and dozens of other states.
Well, he can run, but he can't hide from his words. And what is coming out now, and finally in the public discourse, is the stark contrast between the president we have, the president who is committed to women's rights, something here in the state of New York we've been fighting for since the first Women's Convention in 1848. It's in our DNA to fight for women's rights. So then contrast that with someone who, yes, take him at his word. He said he was going to stack the Supreme Court with pro-life justices. He said he was going to overturn Roe v. Wade. So why wouldn't we believe him now when he says that if he were to be elected in some doomsday scenario for our country, but if he was the next president of the United States, heaven forbid every woman in this country, regardless of what their governors are trying to do to protect them, would be washed out. They would be losing their rights. And to me, that's abhorrent. My mother fought for these rights. I fought for these rights. My daughter and my newborn baby granddaughter should have the rights that were fought for and not stripped away by a man named Donald Trump just because he's pandering to get those votes, in contrast to what he said a decade ago. So you can't trust him other than to know that he will do whatever he can to put women in a place where they do not have the decision to make the decision about their own body. And that is frightening. Women of this country should be terrified at that prospect. They should be mobilized. And I believe there will be consequences at the ballot box this November, just like we saw in New York 3, this congressional race that the whole country was watching, because abortion was on the ballot there on Long Island as well. And all the Long Island Republicans were saying, no, we're going to win this one. It's going to be easy. We've got our candidate. You know, people are angry. They're not happy. I'll tell you what. You put abortion in that conversation and say this person supports and this person opposes, that is a clear line, a demarcation that women, even Republican women, independent women, and Democratic women will say, no, that's too far. It stops right now with the next election.
Yeah, I was watching. My view of the campaign on Long Island was local TV news in New York City, and the advertising, which the Suozzi ads and the advertisements in favor of Democratic candidate Tom Suozzi were all on this, that I saw, were all on this abortion issue, showing once again, as we've seen in other special elections and other elections since Roe was overturned, that it is such a powerful driver in these campaigns.
I knew it would be. And that's why when I had that conversation with Tom Suozzi, who ran a spirited campaign against me, and a lot of people were surprised that I would give him my support because of that. But I'm a Democrat first. I'm an American first.
I just want for the national audience to know, he ran against you in the Democratic primary when you were governor running for election this last time.
But I'm a Democrat and American first. And I know how important it is that we take back the House of Representatives, to take back our democracy. So Tom Suozzi was the person I knew could win. But our conversation first was around the question of, Tom, will you be fully supportive of women's rights to choose women's right to have an abortion? He said, absolutely, absolutely. And I said, well, then you need to run on that. Make that an issue. And he did. And that was the issue, I believe, that helped win the day. So also, when I ran a few years ago, we talked about abortion, my support for abortion, a constitutional amendment, which is now on the ballot this November. But here in the state of New York, a lot of people didn't really think that could ever be jeopardized. So it really didn't rise to people's consciousness as something that's really under threat here when I was running against a Republican member of Congress then. And they said, you're a blue state, you're safe. I think what Donald Trump has done right now by talking about a national ban in a serious way, that this could become the reality. Women of even the blue states, the New Yorks, the Californias, the Massachusetts, and others, they are the ones who ultimately mobilized to get out there and support their members of Congress, whether they're in a safe seat or a battleground seat. We have a lot of battleground seats right here in New York. The path to the Republican majority being wiped out and the Democrats, led by Hakeem Jeffries, taking over goes right through New York State. And as the leader of the state party here, I'm taking this seriously. I'm working on the issues that I believe will help us. And one of them is not just abortion, number one, but number two has to be the Republicans' refusal to accept the deal that was negotiated by President Biden, Chuck Schumer, and conservative Republicans in the Senate to help deal with the migration problem, to help deal with support for Ukraine, to support with Israel. And they said no, and I said, well, once you break it, you own it. So we're going to use that as a wedge issue against them as well this November.
Donald Trump has still not said one sympathetic word about the assassination of Alexei Navalny in one of Vladimir Putin's prisons last week. But Donald Trump cannot stop comparing his suffering to Alexei Navalny's suffering. Listen to what Donald Trump said tonight on Fox about having a civil judgment returned against him by a New York judge last week. And what you're about to hear, Donald Trump, who is free to do anything he wants every day of his life, and flies around on his private plane with jet fuel paid for by gullible campaign contributors, and who plays golf whenever he wants and can eat unlimited amounts of whatever he wants whenever he wants it, he compares that life of his to the life of a Russian dissident who devoted himself to opposing Vladimir Putin, spent years in prison because of it, was poisoned by Vladimir Putin's operatives in a failed murder attempt, and then, finally, last week, was assassinated in Vladimir Putin's prison. Donald Trump thinks his life and Alexei Navalny's life are the same.
It is a form of Navalny. It is a form of communism or fascism. He fined me $355 million plus interest and other things. $355. And what we did, in fact, my financial statements were conservative. Everybody made money. There was no victim. The bank gets up and says, we love this guy.
No one said we love this guy in that trial. No one. Here's what New York State Attorney General Letitia James told ABC News tonight.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
They said no victim, no one got harmed, the banks got paid back, so no harm, no foul. Why is that not the case in your view?
So financial frauds are not victimless crimes. He engaged in this massive amount of fraud, and it wasn't just a simple mistake, a slight oversight. The variations were wildly exaggerated, and the extent of the fraud was staggering.
Donald Trump's first criminal trial is scheduled to begin in New York City with jury selection on Monday, March 25th.